The push was deliberate. I felt his palms press against my back with calculated force, sending me tumbling forward into darkness. There was no mistaking the intention behind those hands. My 25-year-old son Marcus had just tried to kill me. The realization hit harder than the wooden steps beneath my falling body. Sound echoed through the stairwell like thunder. My ribs cracked against the edges, each impact stealing precious breath from my lungs. Vision blurred as my head bounced off the banister. Blood tasted metallic in my mouth. Through the pain, I heard his voice calling from above, already crafting his lie. "It was an accident, Mom," Marcus stammered, clutching the railing with white knuckles. His words tumbled out in rehearsed panic. "You lost your balance at the top. I tried to catch you, but it happened too fast." Standing over my broken body, he delivered his performance with disturbing conviction. Pain radiated through every bone as I writhed on the landing. Something was wrong with my left arm, twisted at an unnatural angle. Marcus descended slowly, his face bearing an expression I had never seen before. Terror wasn't written in his features. Instead, calculation flickered behind his dark eyes, measuring damage like an appraiser. Emergency responders arrived within minutes of his call. Paramedics stabilized my spine while Marcus provided his version of events with remarkable composure. "She's been dizzy lately," he told them convincingly. "Always worried about her balance on these stairs." His lie rolled off his tongue like practiced truth, leaving me speechless with shock. Hospital walls became my prison for 3 weeks. Broken ribs, fractured wrist, severe bruising, and a concussion kept me bedridden. Marcus visited daily, playing the devoted son for nurses and doctors. But when we were alone, his mask slipped. He checked his phone constantly, avoiding eye contact whenever possible. Water glasses remained empty unless I begged. Simple. Requests for blankets or pillows went ignored until staff appeared. Marcus would spring into action then, fluffing pillows and adjusting my bed with theatrical concern. The moment we were alone again, indifference returned to his face like storm clouds blocking sunlight. Physical therapy sessions revealed the extent of my injuries. Muscle weakness plagued my left side, making simple tasks monumentally difficult. Walking required a cane, stairs became mountains, and independence felt like a distant memory. Marcus watched my struggles with what I now recognized as satisfaction rather than sympathy. Returning home felt like entering enemy territory. Marcus had rearranged furniture, claiming he wanted to make the house safer for my recovery. Every change felt calculated, positioning obstacles in strategic locations. The stairs where he pushed me loomed like a monument to his betrayal, taunting me with their presence. Daily routines became exercises in survival. Marcus controlled my medication schedule, often delivering pills late or in wrong dosages. Meals arrived cold or not at all unless I specifically requested them. His care felt like punishment disguised as devotion, each act of negligence carefully measured to appear accidental. Sleep became elusive as footsteps echoed through the hallway at odd hours. Marcus prowled the house like a predator, checking on me with frequency that felt more like surveillance than concern. Sometimes I caught him staring at me with that calculating expression, as if measuring how much more damage I could withstand. Phone conversations took place in hushed whispers behind closed doors. Fragments of Marcus's voice drifted through the walls like poison, words like policy, beneficiary, and timeline repeated with disturbing frequency. Whenever I asked about these calls, he claimed they were school-related, though he'd graduated from college 2 years ago. Suspicious behavior escalated during my second week home. Marcus handled all my mail, claiming he wanted to protect me from stress. Important documents disappeared from my desk, only to reappear days later in different locations. Bank statements vanished completely, along with insurance correspondence and legal papers I'd never seen before. One morning, desperation drove me to the kitchen despite my physical limitations. Pain shot through my ribs with each step, but curiosity about Marcus's secretive behavior outweighed discomfort. The journey downstairs felt like climbing Mount Everest in reverse, each movement a victory against my damaged body. Kitchen counters revealed evidence I wasn't meant to find. An opened envelope bearing my name sat beside the coffee maker, its contents scattered carelessly across the granite surface. Official letterhead caught my attention immediately, drawing me closer despite the risk of discovery. My hands trembled as I reached for the papers. Insurance documents filled my vision with horrifying clarity. a life insurance policy in my name, application dated just 3 weeks before my fall. The signature looked like mine but felt wrong somehow. Too perfect, too practiced. Marcus's name appeared as sole beneficiary for a sum that made my blood run cold. Policy value exceeded anything I could have left him naturally. $500,000 for accidental death, with double indemnity clauses that would make my murder financially irresistible. The pieces of Marcus's puzzle finally clicked into place, revealing a picture more terrifying than any nightmare I'd ever experienced. Memory fragments reassembled themselves with sickening clarity. Marcus hadn't rushed to call emergency services after my fall. Those crucial minutes stretched while he stood over my broken body, phone in hand, finger hovering over the numbers. He'd been deciding whether to let me die or save me for another attempt. Before I continue, I'd love to know where you're reading from and what time at Island. Let me know in the comments. Evidence disappeared as quickly as I'd found it. Marcus returned from his morning jog to find me struggling back to my room, papers carefully replaced in their original positions. His suspicious glance swept the kitchen, searching for signs of my discovery. Sweat glistened on his forehead from more than just physical exertion. That evening brought new horrors to light. Footsteps paused outside my bedroom door around midnight, followed by Marcus's muffled voice speaking into his phone. Words carried through the thin walls like daggers piercing my heart. Each syllable confirmed my worst fears about his intentions and future plans. "She didn't die," Marcus whispered with obvious frustration. His voice carried the weight of disappointment rather than relief. "No, but it was close enough to cause permanent damage. The payout will come once it's officially ruled accidental death. Just trust me on this timeline, okay?" Silence followed his words like thunder after lightning. Terror paralyzed my body as the conversation continued. Marcus discussed my condition like a stock market investment, calculating returns and minimizing risks. References to finishing the job and making it look natural echoed through the hallway. My own son was planning my murder with businesslike efficiency, hand pressed against my mouth to muffle involuntary gasps. Breathing became a conscious effort as panic threatened to overwhelm rational thought. The child I'd raised, loved, and sacrificed for was systematically planning my destruction. Years of maternal devotion meant nothing compared to insurance money and inheritance prospects. Morning brought Marcus into my room with his usual facade of concern. Fake worry painted his features as he asked about my pain levels and medication needs, but something had changed in his demeanor overnight. Confidence replaced uncertainty, as if important decisions had been made during those whispered phone conversations. Courage finally overwhelmed my dad. Fear as Marcus arranged my breakfast tray. Voice shaking with emotion, I posed the question that had haunted me since discovering those insurance papers. "How much am I worth to you, Marcus?" The words hung in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. His reaction chilled me more than winter winds. Pause lasted several heartbeats while calculation flickered behind his eyes. Then came the smile, cold, adult, and completely foreign on my child's face. This wasn't the boy who'd cried in my arms after nightmares. This was a stranger wearing my son's skin. "Enough to make sure it works next time," Marcus replied with terrifying certainty. His voice carried no trace of the loving child who'd once called me his best friend. Instead, pure malice dripped from every syllable. The transformation from devoted son to calculating killer was now complete before my eyes. Paralysis gripped my vocal cords as Marcus's true nature revealed itself. Years of motherly love had been wasted on someone incapable of returning genuine affection. Every sacrifice, every proud moment, every maternal milestone had been building toward this moment of ultimate betrayal. My son was my potential executioner. Breakfast remained untouched as Marcus left for his mysterious daily appointments. Alone with my terror, I began planning my own survival strategy. Physical weakness limited my options, but desperation sharpened my mental faculties. If Marcus could plot my death, I could certainly plot my escape from his murderous intentions. Phone calls to trusted friends felt impossible with Marcus monitoring my communications. He'd installed himself as gatekeeper to my social connections, screening calls and visitors with growing intensity. Isolation had become another weapon in his arsenal, cutting me off from potential allies who might question my sudden decline. Financial institutions required immediate attention, but accessing them posed significant challenges. Marcus controlled my transportation, claiming concern for my safety while effectively imprisoning me in my own home. Bank visits would need to happen without his knowledge. requiring careful planning and considerable physical risk. Legal counsel became my primary objective despite the obstacles involved. Evidence of Marcus's insurance fraud needed professional documentation before he could destroy it completely. A competent attorney could help me reclaim control of my finances and potentially save my life. Time was running out quickly. Neighbor relationships offered potential salvation if I could contact them discreetly. Mrs. Henderson next door had always been friendly, though Marcus had discouraged our friendship recently. Perhaps she'd noticed his suspicious behavior or questioned my sudden reclusiveness. Reaching her required stealth and perfect timing. Medical records would prove crucial in documenting my true condition versus Marcus's claims. Doctor appointments had been canceled or rescheduled repeatedly, with Marcus citing my instability as justification. Independent medical evaluation could expose his lies and establish my competency for legal proceedings. Evening brought new fears as Marcus's behavior grew increasingly erratic. His fake concern dissolved completely when he thought I wasn't watching. Impatience flickered in his movements, suggesting his timeline was accelerating. Whatever deadline he'd established was approaching rapidly, leaving me with limited time to act. Technology became both ally and enemy in my fight for survival. Marcus monitored my computer usage, but late-night sessions while he slept offered brief windows of opportunity. Email contacts, online banking, and emergency services remained accessible if I could avoid detection. Each click risked discovery and potentially fatal consequences. Medication tampering represented Marcus's most immediate threat to my well-being. Dosages had been inconsistent since my return home, with symptoms suggesting deliberate overdoses or dangerous omissions. Keeping track of his manipulations required constant vigilance and careful documentation of every pill he administered. Kitchen access provided opportunities for gathering evidence of Marcus's deception. Documents reappeared sporadically, suggesting he was preparing for some final action. Photographing these papers with my phone became a dangerous but necessary mission. Each image could save my life or seal my fate. Sleep deprivation weakened my resistance as Marcus's nocturnal activities intensified. His whispered conversations grew more frequent and urgent, often lasting hours past midnight. Exhaustion made concentration difficult, but survival instinct kept me alert to every nuance of his escalating aggression and impatience. Daytime visitors became rare as Marcus claimed I was too fragile for social interaction. Friends who'd supported me through my husband's death 2 years ago were systematically discouraged from calling or visiting. This isolation served Marcus's purposes perfectly, eliminating witnesses to his increasingly obvious abuse. Financial statements revealed unauthorized transactions when I managed to access them briefly. Large withdrawals and suspicious transfers suggested Marcus was liquidating assets for his own benefit. My life savings were disappearing while he prepared for my death, ensuring maximum profit from his matricidal scheme. Emergency plans required careful consideration of my physical limitations and Marcus's surveillance. Escape routes from the house needed to account for my mobility issues and the risk of another accident during any attempt to flee. Every door and window represented both opportunity and danger. Documentation of Marcus's crimes became my secret obsession during daylight hours. Hidden notes detailed his suspicious behavior, threatening statements, and evidence of financial manipulation. These records would either vindicate me or serve as my final testimony if his next attempt succeeded where the first had failed. Professional help remained frustratingly out of reach despite my desperate need for intervention. Marcus's control over my communications and transportation created an effective prison. Social workers, attorneys, and law enforcement might as well have existed on another planet for all the good they could do me. Prescription bottles offered clues to Marcus's medication tampering through careful examination. Pill counts never matched dosage schedules, with evidence of substitutions and adulterations that could explain my persistent weakness and confusion. He was systematically poisoning me while maintaining plausible deniability. Memory problems intensified under the stress of constant fear and possible drug manipulation. Important details slipped away like water through my fingers, making evidence gathering increasingly difficult. Marcus exploited these lapses to gaslight me further, suggesting my mental capacity was declining rapidly despite my certainty otherwise. Physical therapy appointments were canceled repeatedly, with Marcus claiming I was too unstable for medical visits. This isolation from healthcare professionals prevented anyone from documenting my actual condition or questioning the discrepancies between his claims and my observable symptoms. Medical neglect became another weapon. Insurance investigators would eventually examine my case if Marcus succeeded in his murderous plans. Evidence of his fraud needed to survive my death to expose his crimes and prevent him from profiting. Hidden documentation became my legacy insurance against his ultimate betrayal. Trust became a luxury I could no longer afford as Marcus's mask slipped further each day. The loving son facade cracked under pressure, revealing glimpses of the calculating killer beneath. Every interaction felt like a chess match where my life served as the ultimate stakes. Escape planning consumed my thoughts during Marcus's absences from the parade. House, window locks, door keys, and emergency exits required careful assessment given my physical limitations. One chance might be all I'd get to flee before he implemented his final solution to our family problems. Telephone access remained heavily monitored, but brief moments of opportunity occasionally presented themselves. Emergency numbers were memorized for quick dialing if Marcus's timeline accelerated unexpectedly. 911 became my most important speed dial, potentially the difference between life and death. Banking irregularities multiplied as Marcus grew bolder with his financial manipulations. Unauthorized account access and fraudulent transactions painted a clear picture of his criminal intent. These records would prove invaluable if I survived long enough to present them to law enforcement authorities. Medication schedules became battlegrounds where I fought for consciousness and clarity. Refusing pills triggered Marcus's anger, while accepting them risked further poisoning. Each dose represented a calculated gamble with my cognitive function and physical survival. The line between medicine and murder blurred daily. Neighbors represented my best hope for outside intervention if I could contact them safely. Mrs. Henderson's bedroom window faced mine across our adjoining driveways. Signal arrangements might allow communication despite Marcus's surveillance. Desperate times called for creative solutions and considerable personal risk. Legal documents required immediate revision to prevent Marcus from inheriting anything if his plans succeeded. Will changes, power of attorney revocations, and beneficiary modifications needed professional handling. Dying without these protections would reward his murderous efforts with everything he'd killed me to obtain. Kitchen accidents became more frequent as Marcus's patience wore thin. Broken glass appeared in my food. Cleaning chemicals migrated to accessible locations, and sharp objects were left carelessly within reach. Each incident could be dismissed individually, but the pattern revealed deliberate intent to harm. Clock watching became obsessive as I calculated Marcus's daily schedule and identified brief windows of opportunity. His routines provided precious minutes of freedom when evidence could be gathered, calls could be made, or escape plans could be implemented. Timing would determine everything. Social services intervention required evidence of abuse that I couldn't safely gather or communicate. Marcus's control over my environment made documentation nearly impossible, while his manipulation of my medication affected my credibility. The system designed to protect vulnerable adults seemed powerless to help me. Health deterioration accelerated under Marcus's care despite my improving injuries from the fall. Symptoms suggested systematic poisoning rather than natural recovery complications. Each day brought new weakness, confusion, and physical distress that served his narrative of my declining mental capacity. Courage wavered as Marcus's threats became more explicit and his timeline more urgent. The boy I'd raised had become a stranger capable of matricide for financial gain. Accepting this reality required abandoning 25 years of maternal love and pride in favor of survival instinct. Evidence preservation became crucial as Marcus's behavior suggested his endgame was approaching rapidly. Hidden documentation needed to survive whatever method he chose for my final elimination. Justice demanded that his crimes be exposed even if I couldn't live to see his punishment. Staircase memories haunted my dreams as I relived that first murder attempt nightly. The sensation of his hands pushing me forward played repeatedly in my subconscious mind. Those stairs had become a monument to his betrayal, a constant reminder that my own child wanted me dead. Freedom felt increasingly impossible as Marcus tightened his control over every aspect of my existence. Transportation, communication, medication, nutrition, and social contact all passed through his hands. Escape required perfect timing, considerable luck, and more physical strength than my battered body currently possessed. Tomorrow would bring either salvation or destruction as Marcus's impatience reached its breaking point. His whispered phone conversations had grown more urgent, suggesting deadlines were approaching. Whatever he'd planned would happen soon, leaving me with one final chance to save myself from my son's murderous ambitions. Survival instinct override maternal love as reality crystallized with terrifying clarity. The child I'd nurtured had become my greatest threat. Marcus wanted me dead for money, and he possessed both opportunity and determination to succeed. My only hope lay in exposing his crimes before he could complete them. Dawn approached with the weight of finality as Marcus's footsteps echoed through the hallway one last time. His calculated smile had been replaced by grim determination. The game was ending, and only one of us would survive to see another sunrise. My son had made his choice, and now I had to make mine.